Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and officially, Pokemon Legends ZA is starting to roll out worldwide. Depending on where you live, the game is now available through the Nintendo eShop, and I wanted to give you my early impressions of the game. I've been playing it on a Nintendo Switch 1 over the past couple of days. I've played about 7 to 8 hours, somewhere in that range, but I wanted to give you my early impressions of this game so far, but also my thoughts on the Switch 1 version, which no reviewers have really covered yet because they were sent Switch 2 codes. So in today's video, we are going to be going over my early thoughts on Pokemon Legends ZA. Still in the early game, keep that in mind. This is not my final review. We'll do that over the weekend or whenever I, finish up rolling credits on the Switch 2 version. But I wanted to give you my kind of first thoughts on this game so far, the good and the bad. So if you are new here and you enjoy Pokemon Legends ZA content and coverage, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, and yes, I will say right away, everything you're seeing in this video is my own Switch 1 footage running on actual Switch 1 hardware. It's not running on an emulator like a lot of other videos you might be seeing on YouTube right about now. So it's actual Switch 1 hardware. And I have to say, listen, I know there's a lot of discourse right now about how seemingly Game Freak used one model for the entirety of Lumiose, how the buildings are all flat and just textures. There's no actual 3D model like balconies or anything. I will say, as someone who was very critical of this game's art style when it was first announced, as someone who doesn't love how Scarlet and Violet looks, not just the world itself and, the jagged mountains and all that, but even the character designs, I think, were a step back in that game, and certainly they've kind of carried over that same style to Legends ZA. It looks better than I thought, and that might surprise you, but playing it on Switch 1, I guess the bar was so low in the dirt after Scarlet and Violet, and I actually went back and played some Scarlet and Violet on Switch 2 recently, and I forgot how bad that game looks, to be honest with you. Like, it really is kind of incredible how bad Scarlet and Violet actually look. Even on a Switch 2, the frame rate's nice, certainly, but the amount of pop-in, but even just, like, the actual geometry of the landscapes of Paldea, it's kind of unbelievable they released that game looking the way it did. And I see so many people saying, like, oh, Legends ZA is not a step up above Scarlet and Violet. You have to be blind to think that, man. I'm not going to sit here and say that Legends ZA is where it should be. I'm not sitting here and saying that this is some, Tears of the Kingdom tier game, highest tier Nintendo game graphics or anything like that. It certainly still has a long ways to go to getting to where I think most people would say Pokemon should be, given how big the franchise is. But playing it on Switch 1, seeing it in motion, not even at a consistent 30 FPS, I would say. Certainly the Switch 2 version is going to be 60, so that'll be a much smoother experience. It looks fine. Like, it looks a lot better than I expected. When you're running around the streets of Lumiose, you're not really noticing the textures on the walls. And in comparing it to the likes of Scarlet and Violet, but even something like Sword and Shield, I actually think it looks way better than those games. The pop-in is nowhere near as bad. There is still some. And none of the issues I have with this game's performance actually affected gameplay in the way that I feel Scarlet and Violet did. And that Scarlet and Violet, the way that the Pokemon popped in a couple of feet from you, I feel like actually genuinely detracted from that experience. You're trying to shiny hunt or something, and I mean, literally, you can't even see them. A, because they're too small. They made the Pokemon way too small in that game. But also, they would pop in if you go too far away. I would say so far, the visuals of this game, the performance of this game, haven't negatively affected my experience playing it, which it sounds crazy to say that as like a positive thing, right? We shouldn't be here to begin with. But to the people saying this isn't a big step up over Scarlet and Violet, I could safely say it is. This is a huge step from Scarlet and Violet. Having just replayed Scarlet and Violet a little bit the other day, this runs way better, looks way better, and that is not something I was expecting from the Switch 1 version. Even in battle, I was worried, since it's all this real-time battling and you have these actual, big animations playing when you're doing the battles. You have water Pokemon doing surf or whatever, just these crazy effects going on. The frame rate will drop at times, but not really in battle as so far that I've noticed. Like, it's not really in battle that I've noticed it. If anything, the frame rates drop mostly in like cutscenes or something, like when a character pops up on screen or something. So overall, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm blown away by how well this game looks on Switch 1 or anything like that, but I would say it's in the upper echelon of Switch-era Pokemon games, which, once again, bar is low, but it's still nice to see them moving in the right direction. So those are my thoughts on the Switch 1 version of the game in and of itself, but let's talk about the actual game. Legends ZA, we are back in Lumiose City. We are getting more Kalos. We are getting more time with beloved characters like AZ and, mostly just AZ, and then a couple of new characters, some that are tied to past Pokemon X and Y characters. You'll see these references throughout the game. It is great to be here. And I've said this in videos over the past week. it's a very different Pokemon game, and I think people are going to be very divided on it. Shocker, I know. Pokemon fans divided on a game? That's never happened. No, but I think more than ever, people are going to be divided. Not because there's going to be the camp of people that are like, oh, this game is great, and oh, this game is bad or anything necessarily, but because it actually is a very different style of Pokemon game, and the pacing is very different. And that the past two games that we've gotten, but really the past, I don't know, all of them, frankly, have been so much more about catching Pokemon. But really, you know, Legends Arceus and Paldea, Scarlet and Violet, you have these big, huge open areas, and you're just exploring in these wild areas, and you're catching Pokemon. And the focus of those games very much is catching Pokemon. Legends ZA is not about that. You do catch Pokemon in it. There are these wild zones, but they're nowhere near to the scale of the wild areas in a Legends Arceus or the open areas in Sword and Shield, and certainly not as big as the open world in Scarlet and Violet. Instead, Legends ZA focuses much more on the story, but also the battling mechanics, which is what they've really overhauled here. This game is not turn-based in the traditional sense, and it's also not turn-based in the way that Legends Arceus was. This is a real-time active combat game with cooldowns on your Pokemon moves. You're running around the arena, you're locking onto the Pokemon in battle, you can do a dodge roll, although a little nitpick with that, you can only do a dodge roll when you're not locked on, which takes some time to get used to because when I'm in battle, I'm going to be locked onto the Pokemon. So it kind of makes it hard to like, you know, mentally remember to actually unlock from the Pokemon and then roll, because the way it works is you lock onto the Pokemon and then you have your 4 Pokemon moves you can use attached to all of the face buttons. Usually, I think it's Y you press to roll, whereas if you're locked on it, it is a move that your Totodile or whatever has, which is what I picked as my starter on the Switch 1 version here. And while I'm sure people will have some pretty serious opinions on this battle system, both good or bad, I actually really like it. We have had however many Pokemon games that are turn-based, 20, I don't even know anymore, right? We're so far into the series. I am so into them changing it up, mixing up the formula, and now we have Pokemon Champions coming out for that turn-based crowd. We have that more hardcore competitive experience. I think it is perfectly okay. If anything, even it's what I want for them to do is to move away from turn-based combat and do something more fresh, something new here. And they did it, and they nailed it. It's a lot of fun. It's more in-depth than I was expecting, in that, okay, you have 4 moves, and they have cooldowns, and you're just kind of locked onto one Pokemon. So that's pretty basic. But there actually is more depth to it, and like positioning, and how, let's say your Pokemon goes behind a tree, and you use an attack, you can actually kind of have attacks miss because of your environment. There was one side mission I was doing where I had to fight a Chespin over and over and over for the side mission, which was really funny. And there's a car that the Chespin keeps running around. And because he keeps running around the car, it makes it a little bit harder to hit him. So you have to move your trainer around, and it makes the battles feel way more dynamic and actually feel like you're in Lumiose City in the moment. You're not, transitioning to this generic battlefield. It is all set in Lumiose in real time, and it's a lot of fun. I think some people might get tired of it. I think they might feel it's repetitive after a while, and maybe I will grow tired of it as well once I, put 50 more hours into this game. But so far, it is a nice breath of fresh air. I don't know if this is what I want every Pokemon game to be moving forward, but I really do respect Game Freak for trying something new here, and it actually works. It's a really fun new combat system, but there are some slight critiques I have here. I mentioned that it's a little bit hard to roll around because you have to remember to unlock one from the Pokemon. I also wish it was a little bit easier to actually switch your Pokemon as well. So similar to like a Legends Arceus, you just press on the D-pad left or right, and then you press, I think it's down or up to call the Pokemon back or put it out onto the field. I guess if you have a Switch 2 Pro Controller, you can program these to the back paddles on that, and that'll make it a little bit smoother. That's what I'll likely end up doing with the Switch 2 version. But it can be a little cumbersome to switch your Pokemon in battle, so that is something I've noticed. But overall, yes, I've really enjoyed the battle system in this game so far. Something I am much more critical of when it comes to Legends ZA so far is the Wild Zone. So for me, and I was saying this earlier, Pokemon is about catching Pokemon. That is what I love to do, and that's why I love Legends Arceus so much, and even despite its issues, Scarlet and Violet. You have these big open areas. It truly feels like these wild zones where Pokemon are just living in their natural habitats, and this, it feels more like a guided Safari Zone experience. I think I said that in my video yesterday, looking through the reviews of this game. So at the start of the game, you only have access to 5 wild zones, and more open up throughout the game. I won't say how many there are. It's, I guess, about what I expected overall. It's not like a ton of them. It's not a tiny amount. But these wild zones are really small. There's a decent amount of them, but they are so small, and there are only a handful of Pokemon in each, and sometimes a Pokemon will pop up in multiple wild zones, like Pidgey, for example, might pop up in 3 of those, set amount of wild zones there are in the game. This is why it feels like this game's focus is so much more on battling and the ZA Royale, because you're not going to go on a crazy adventure like in Legends Arceus, going through this huge map, catching every Pokemon, because you're just going through what feels like a guided tour, essentially. It's so limiting having it be in these wild zones. And so far, I gotta be honest, I don't really like it. Like, it's fine. I'm not gonna say I absolutely hate it. It's still fun catching Pokemon. You do still have those real-time action mechanics like you did in Pokemon Arceus. You do have Alpha Pokemon, which are back, which is awesome. I love Alpha Pokemon and the idea of like shiny hunting Alphas and stuff like that. There are those fun moments still where you'll have like 7 Pokemon, wild Pokemon, running up on you, trying to attack you at once, and you're like running away, or you throw your Pokemon out and you're trying to battle them all at once in real time, which is certainly fun, but it's really just the size and scale of these zones and how many Pokemon actually inhabit them that I feel like is very restrictive on what a Pokemon experience is to me in terms of like this open world, or at least the past couple Pokemon games, right? This open world experience catching Pokemon. This is not that, which I don't love, but also I do think it's fine because, well, we have a Pokemon game almost every year. This one just so happened to take 3 years to come out, but we get one every year. I'm okay with them focusing more on battling for this one and focusing on this new battle system as opposed to catching, which has been the focus of the past several Pokemon games. But I think this is where a lot of people are going to be divided. Either you like the battling and that's your primary thing and you're going to love this game, or your main thing is Pokemon catching and, building those relationships, and maybe it won't be quite as exciting to you, which I think goes to the greater Lumiose City setting as a whole. I absolutely adore Pokemon X and Y. I put so much time into those games, and to see Lumiose City realized in such a way is fantastic. I love it, and I think it's a lot of fun to walk around, explore, talk to NPCs. I think this game has done a better job than ever of making a Pokemon world that feels lived in, because they did have this one relatively small map in scale to really fill out with characters and stories and side missions and stuff, and there's always something to go do or find. There's these Mega Shards all over the place that you're breaking down to trade in for Mega Stones later on. But once again, it is just so different from any other Pokemon game that, as of right now, I don't really know how to feel about it. You're not going under these routes. You're not finding a new wave of wild Pokemon there. You're just kind of going around the city in a circle, going to different zones, fast traveling through the like 10 or 15 Pokemon centers or whatever on the map. There's not that many to fly around to, different shops and stuff. And it just has a different game flow than other Pokemon games. So we'll see how I land on this when I finish the full game. But right now I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. It feels weird having a Pokemon game set entirely in one city. But once again, I think this is one of those things where people will either love it, some people will kind of just be like, okay, whatever, and some people will absolutely hate it. But once again, I do think it's really cool that Game Freak is trying something completely different with this game. Now, I do really like the overall game flow and how the pacing is, so issues with the wild zones aside, basically, the game has a day and night cycle. There's actually a timer circling around the map where it'll be daytime or nighttime. You can sit on a bench to pass the time a little bit faster if you're trying to do a quest or something. But basically, during the day, you're doing side missions, you're talking to two characters, doing story stuff, but also going to the wild zones, and that is your daytime in this game. And then once nighttime comes, that's when all the battle zones open up, and you get points in the battle zones to rank up throughout the ZA Royale. You have to get so many points, so many wins in these battle zones to face like the battle division leader or whatever they're called, to rank up the lettering system through the alphabet. And my issues with the wild zones aside, I think this is actually really good pacing. You have, okay, here I'm doing, 30, 45 minutes of wild zone stuff, catching Pokemon, doing side quests, and now it's time to battle for a little bit. I actually do really like the game flow here of doing both of those things kind of back and forth. It just does kind of feel like the battling was put on focus here more than the catching. Like, even the way that you're doing your professor's research in this game, like, yeah, there's cutscenes about it, and they're talking to you about it, and you get your Pokédex, and you're catching 30 different types of grass Pokemon to earn some points or whatever towards your Pokemon Battle Pass in the game. Eventually, you get the Shiny Charm if you complete everything. But it definitely feels like that side of the game, that portion of Legends ZA, has kind of taken the backseat to the battling. I do also want to shout out the music, though. The music so far, and I will say I've listened to some of the leaked soundtrack that has come out through like the data mining, but also just the soundtrack early on in the game. They did a really good job. A lot of great new songs, but also remixes of other X and Y music. I mean, they kind of cooked. I'll have to sit on this one for a while and really think about it, re-listen to it several times over once I finish the full game. But early impressions, don't hold me to this if I change my mind later, if I really sit on it for a while and I disagree with this thoughts. I think this might be the best Pokemon soundtrack since at least Sun and Moon, but it might even go further than that. They really did a great job here with the OST, so I did want to shout that out. I haven't really seen many people talking about it, but the soundtrack in this game goes unbelievably hard, especially if you are nostalgic for X and Y. They did a great job there. So those are my early thoughts on Pokemon Legends ZA, once again on the Switch 1 version. I will have a full review probably over the weekend. Like I said, I want to take my time with it and really just play through the full game, probably 100%, and do some shiny hunting to get a feel for the longevity of this game as well. But I wanted to get on here today and just kind of give my early thoughts on it, my honest thoughts, the good, the bad. It's mostly good. Honestly, it's mostly good. I'm more forgiving of the visuals than I think a lot of other people, and I think most Pokemon fans realistically don't actually care that much as long as the game itself is not hindered by the pop-in like in Scarlet and Violet. That was really the main thing with Scarlet and Violet for me. The pop-in genuinely affected my experience with that game, of the pop-in of the wild Pokemon. That is not an issue in this game. There is pop-in, don't get me wrong, with like buildings in the background and stuff, on Switch 1 at least, but it's not anything that actually affects my gameplay experience at Pokemon. And ultimately, I love Pokemon for catching Pokemon and battling, and this game delivers on that, mostly on the battling side of things. I do have some issues with the wild zones, as we talked about. That, I guess, might be my biggest criticism, but overall, I'm enjoying the game so far. I'll have a full review soon, but until then, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate all the support on the Legends ZA content. My video yesterday blew up in a way that doesn't happen for me, I will say. Right now, it's over 60,000 views. I have no idea how that happened, so I really do appreciate the support. So subscribe here for more Legends ZA content, coverage, all that fun stuff. And until next time, folks, peace.